What's up everybody, welcome back. So we're going to do another tutorial here on printing Java patterns as promised in the last video. It's going to have to do with triangles. So the important word there is patterns. The first one we're going to start with is this guy here. So oopsie doopsie goopsie goo. Where did it go? There you are, poo. Okay, so we want to print basically this triangle here. Now it's not an equilateral triangle, it's a right triangle, I guess is what it's called. And we want to print a certain amount based on the user's input. As you can see here to my left, enter number of rows. So the user is going to enter a number of rows and we're going to print that many rows, but make it a triangle. So the important thing to consider here is that there is a pattern to this. Now if we look at this, you can see that obviously we're going to start the print from the top here and then we're going to go down. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to print this top line here, oops, and then this second line, and then the third one, and so on and so forth. So the first line is printing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pretty easy. So it's like each row prints the number of stars that each row prints. It's the row that it's in. So first row prints 1 star, second row prints 2 stars, third row prints 3 stars, fourth and fifth, so on and so forth. So we want to write our program that way. So we're definitely going to need a loop for this. So it's going to be for int I equals 0. Now while actually let's do it 1. While I is less than or equal to the number of rows that the user enters, we're going to increment the I, and this will basically take us to the bottom row. Oh, oops. Okay. Now, while we're in here, we want to print a certain number of stars. Now, since that's another repetitive sequence, we need another loop. So it's going to be for int j equals 1. Now, how many stars are we printing? Remember, we said we're going to print the number of stars are going to be the row that we're in. And the row that we're in, according to this, it's going to be I. So we're going to keep going until j is less than or equal to I, because that's how many stars we're going to print. And then we're going to keep incrementing it and printing those amount of stars. Or that star for that column. Okay. Oh, oops. Why did I put stars here? Stars are stuck in my head. Okay. So now we want to do system.out.print. Remember, not print line, because this for loop here is indicating what we're printing in that row. If we do a print line, it's going to basically print a line at the end of each star, which we do not want. So we're going to print here, and we're going to do a star and then a space, just to make it look neat, and want to make it look as close to our picture as possible here. So star, star, space, star, star, space, star, space. We're basically going to have a space after the last star too, but that doesn't matter. Okay, so that's pretty much it, but not really, because we do have to print a line when we're done printing for that row. So it's going to be at the end here, system.out.print print line, like so. Alright, so let's run our program here. Okay, now it's asking us for the number of rows. Now let's print our picture first. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. So I'm going to input 5 here. Let's see if it prints like the picture. 5, enter. Alright, so let's look at our picture. Oh, looks identical. The one in the picture is a little smushed together, but I guess that's just the way it is. But as you can see, it's the same. So that one was pretty easy. Now let's move on to a bit of a more difficult one. But I did this one just so you can understand that once we analyze the pattern, we can write the code for it. So let's look at this one here. So this is a pyramid. Alright, so let's analyze this a little bit. So what do we see here? Is this similar to the previous pattern that we printed? The previous pattern was basically this portion here. So that was pretty easy. 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, you know, going off on the base of rows, on the bases of the rows. All right, hang on, let me there we go. Okay. So what's different here? As we can see, the first row has 1 star. The second row has 3 stars. So let me write this down. I wish I could like edit without it like shrinking down like that. All right, well, I can't. So the first row has 1. The second row has 2. And oh, sorry, 3. The third row has 5. The fourth row has 7. And the fifth row has 9. So if we look at this pattern here, it's like it's going in an odd number. Let me pull up that picture again. Sorry guys, I'm just pressing everything like a maniac here. Okay, where's my full triangle? There it is. Okay. So we got 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So it's like each row is printing odd numbers. Now, another thing to keep in mind is similar to the previous problem, we're going to start at the top, right? At this star here. So what that means is we're going to need to print out everything to the left of this star, which are basically spaces. Now, if we kind of analyze this a little bit here, if we start at the top, we know that each row is going to have an odd number of stars. So we'll figure out how to print that in a second. But to the left of each row is a certain number of spaces. Now, if we take a look at this, so here's the first space, then the second space, then the third space, then the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, 8 spaces in the first row. Alright? So it's an even number of spaces here, and now let's look at the spaces here. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 spaces. So it's an even number of spaces. Now, an easy way to basically count up even numbers is in 2s, just to keep everything small and tidy. So we can say this has basically 2, 4, 6, 8 spaces. So 4 instances of double spaces. By double spaces, I mean, you know, like that. Like 1, 2. And then you close it off. So that's a double space. So that's what we see there. So now, what I want to do here is, hang on, I'm just going to make this a bit smaller. Just so we can see the picture too. And then we're going to try to work up the pattern here. Alright. Let me zoom in here. Alright, hope that's visible enough. Okay, so let's work up our pattern. So we are going to ask the user for a certain number of rows. In our picture here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. Alright, so obviously we're going to need to print that amount of rows. So the first loop is easy. So we got int I equals 0. While I is less than, or sorry, let's do 1. While I is less than or equal to the number of rows we're going to move on to the next row, I++. Alright, that part's easy enough. So now we're basically printing a loop of spaces and a loop of stars. So 2 separate loops. So first we have our loop of spaces. Since we are starting from the topmost, it's going to be the spaces that print first. So keep that in mind. So that's why we're doing space first. So for int space equals 1, right? And then within some condition, we're going to print a certain number of spaces, and then we're going to increment that so it prints each space. And within this, we're going to do system.out.print, not line, just print. And we're going to print, as we indicated, a double space, since each space, on each row, it is an even number of spaces. So it'll be basically, you know, 2, 4, 6, 8. For the first one in our case here, it's an 8. So it's going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, basically 4 of these guys. So how do we know, like, you know, how do we indicate that we want to print a certain number of spaces. If we look at the picture here, right, we know the first one is 8. How is that relative to our current row? We know that it can't be a dynamic number here. It can't be like, you know, keep printing while space is less than or equal to, I don't know, like less than or equal to 4. Right? We can't do that. That'll be fine for our first star, but if it's just a static number here, on each row it's going to print 8 spaces. We don't want that. We want to change, so this needs to be dynamic. So what we need to indicate here is a way where we know that we're gonna in the first row there, we're gonna print double space 4 times, and in the second row we're gonna print double space 2 times. No, sorry, 2, 4, 6, 8. Oh, in the first topmost we're gonna print double space 4 times. Second one we're gonna print double space 3 times. Third, 2 times. Fourth, 1 time. So how do we relate that to our current row position? So let's talk about the first one. So we know when we go in, our I is going to equal 1. Okay. And how many rows am I printing? 5, according to this here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just based on this picture. So if I say while space is less than or equal to the number of rows, that just means while space is less than or equal to 5. That doesn't really help us at all, right? Now, what if we do while space is less than or equal to -1? So 5 minus 1 is 4, but does that fulfill our condition for each row? Let's take a look. So while space is less than or equal to rows minus 1, so we enter it in once. Our number of rows is 5. So 5 minus 1 is 4. And then we go to the next one. 5 minus 1 is 4. So as you can see, this is still kind of static because the number of rows is not changing. What is changing is the row that we're on. So if we replace that and we put I here, does that make sense? Let's take a look. So we enter our first row. I equals 1, rows equals 5. 5 minus 1 is 4. So we print out 4 instances of this double space. Now let's go into our second row here. So we know we go into our second row. So in this instance, I equals 2. Now rows is still 5. So 5 minus 2 gives us 3 instances of the double space, which is true in this case. And then let's do one more. So I equals 3. So rows is 5. 5 minus 3 equals 2. Now 2 instances over here. Yep, that makes sense. So this will work for us in terms of our spaces. Now we need to write a loop for our stars. So let's do that. So for int, let's do star equals 1, and then some condition here. And you want to increment that to print out each star. And what are we printing here? We're printing system.out.println. We're printing a star and a space, right? Just to fulfill this condition here. Star space, star space, star space, star space, so on and so forth. Alright, so what can be the condition here? So we know that each row is printing an odd number of stars. Now there is a known formula for that, which is basically 2 times any number minus 1 will give you a odd number. So what is that? That's 2 times any number, 2 times any number minus 1 will give you an odd number. Now we do need an odd number in each row, so we definitely need to keep this formula in mind. Now the 2 is going to be static no matter what, and the 1 is going to be static no matter what. The only thing that we need to figure out is this star over here. So what am I gonna, like, how can I find out what that star is? Let's see. So if we want to fulfill our first scenario, we know that we need to print 1 star. So easy enough, we can do while star is less than or equal to 1. But once again, that doesn't really help us, right? Because the 1 is static, so it's just going to print 1 star on each row. So we want to go ahead and we want to plug in our formula here. So I want to do 2 times some number minus 1. So what is this number here that we need to put? So let's kind of plug in our stuff here. So we have rows, which doesn't change. So that means this is going to be static, and we don't want that. It has to be dynamic. So what if we put in the row that we're currently on, similar to our top for loop? So if I put rows here, right? So if we go into our first instance, we know I equals 1. I'm sorry, not rows, I here. So we know that I equals 1. So 2 times 1 is 2 minus 1 is 1. That fulfills our first star. Okay, let's move on. 2. 2 times 2 is 4 minus 1 is 3. Fulfills it. 3. 2 times 3 is 6 minus 1 is 5. So we kind of caught the pattern here. So this will work for us. Now all we need to do here is remove this line, because we don't want to print a line after each star. We want to print it after our space and stars are done printing for that row. So we're going to do it here. System.out.print line, like so. And let's go ahead and let's give this a run. So we're going to do 5 rows here just to match our picture. Let's run this. Enter number of rows. Okay, 5. Bam. So as you can see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that looks the same. Now the benefit of asking the user and having this in loops is it's dynamic, so you can enter as many as you want. 20, right? Can't really see the picture much there, but there you go. Let's do something more crazy here. How about, oops, how about like 100 here, right? Oh, oops, I added a period there, so it gave me an error because 100 dot is not an integer. So 100, look at that. I mean, obviously it's too big to see here, but yep, you guys get the point. So that's pretty much it for the pyramid problem. I mean, I hope I explained it well and you guys understand. If you did, like the video, and don't forget to subscribe. I will catch you guys next time.